Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. It is February. I'm repping my February clothing, pink. Oh, I just love the Valentine's aesthetic, like pinks and reds. And I never used to be a pink girly. In fact, like growing up when I was at school, I thought it was cool to like be a girl that didn't like pink. And I was like, oh, I'm such a tomboy. I was such a gamer girl. Like, ugh, pink's disgusting. And now I'm like, no, pink is fucking adorable. Love pink things and the aesthetic is just so cute. So I'm so glad that it's February. But today I thought I would tell you all about the books I read in January. I read a total of 6 books in January, which for me is quite a lot, honestly. I said at the beginning of the year and it still sounds like I am very much in my reading era now at the moment. Definitely, I read every day for at least probably an hour a day. There was a time in January where I didn't receive my copy of House of Flame and Shadow when I thought I was going to, and I literally didn't read for 2 days because I was sulking, but I then didn't know what to do with myself. Like I literally got home from work and I sat down and I was like, reading is my personality. What do I do now? So yeah, 6 books, and then let's do some stats as well. If you're a stat girly like me, I love my stats. I've been logging them in my digital book journal and I'm having so much fun with it. I just think it's so interesting to look at. So let's have a look. So out of the 6 books that I read in January, 2 of those books were romances, 2 of them were magical realism, 1 was a fantasy, and 1 was a mystery. My average rating was 4 stars. Every single book I read in January had a completely different rating. I didn't rate any 2 books the same, which I think is really interesting. Like, it was a very, very varied month. I'm questioning the next stat. It's what Storygraph told me, but I'm too lazy to like actually figure it out. But apparently I read 2,828 pages. And for the 6 books in question that I read, I don't understand how that is literally possible, but we're gonna roll that. Who knows? I'm pretty sure that's not true, but whatever. And most of the books that I read were between 300 to 499 pages. So let's go with the order that I read them in, which actually makes this video start off on such a downer because technically my first read wasn't a complete read. It was a DNF. One of my bookish in real life friends had been obsessing with me to read this for a long time. I bought it and it just sat on my shelves for quite a few months. Her name is Melody as well. I will link her Instagram here. And that book is From Lukov with Love. Yeah, this was a hard DNF for me. I will not be picking this up again. I mean, I say a hard DNF. I read the majority of this book. I think I got to page like 350 maybe, and it's 450-ish. Oh no, it's actually just shy of 500 pages actually. So I had like another 150 pages, let's say, left to read, and I gave this book so many chances. I really pushed through because it didn't take long for me to feel like I wasn't enjoying it, honestly. Kind of got to like 100 pages and I was like, it's not horrific, but like it's definitely not going to be more than a 3-star. I kind of already had in my head, to be honest, unless like something crazy happened. That's why I gave it a chance, and I can confirm nothing crazy happened in the slightest. I did not like these characters. I didn't like the female or the male. I found the female to be, her name's Jasmine, I don't know why I'm calling them male and female. I found Jasmine to be just really unlikable. I didn't like her. I found her to be really like rude, kind of outspoken, but like in a negative way. There was a lot of swearing, just a lot of like really aggressive behavior and language, I feel like, which, don't get me wrong, like I don't hate that in a character. You know, Bryce from Crescent City, you could say, kind of comes under that umbrella, and I love Bryce. She is a badass queen, but I just couldn't gel with Jasmine. And then Ivan Lukov, like, no, absolutely not. He is in my like red flag list of book boyfriends. He can sit in the corner with Tamlin for all I care. I made a TikTok on why I didn't like this book if you want a more condensed version as well. But for me, Ivan was just mean. Like, he was just mean. He wasn't like a bit grumpy or a bit broody. Like, he was just outright mean. He gave Jasmine so many like body image issues and made her feel self-conscious for like so many years of her life. I then also just wasn't convinced of their chemistry. Like, to be honest, within the 350 pages that I did read, Nothing ever really still happened between them. It was kind of starting to, and I just wasn't buying it at all. Like, just the way they were interacting and everything, I was like, no, I'm not convinced of this romance. Like, it's just not doing it for me at all. It's such a shame because I was so excited to start like a more sport, I know it's not necessarily sports romance because it's about like figure skaters. Oh my god, yeah, I haven't even described what this book is about. It's basically, yeah, about two figure skaters, and Jasmine, our main female character, she's thinking about retiring because she's never won a competition or whatever, and she's just kind of ready to give up. She's always been like close, but she's never actually done it, and she's just like fed up. And Ivan Lukov is like a massive champion. He's won loads of competitions and whatever, and he's looking for another partner for reasons I can't remember. Basically, they partner up, but they hate each other. They've had many conflicts and like disputes in the past, so it's all like, oh god, I'll do it if it means I'm gonna win, but I don't like you. And we go from there, obviously. But yeah, I'm so sorry, but this book just really didn't do it for me. So I was disappointed, just as disappointed as I'm sure some of you will be. I did not like this one. But this is where things get good, guys, because the next book is a 5-star for me. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. It's part of a series. I feel like some people either have it at the top of their series ranking or at the bottom. For me, well, I mean, I've only read the first one and this one, but for me, it's definitely overtaken the first book, and that is Heartless by Elsie Silver. Oh my goodness. This book follows Willa, who is the friend of the FMC in the first book, Summer. And basically she has put herself forward to be the nanny babysitter for one of the Eaton brothers, Cade. Cade is like really grumpy, you know, the usual, elusive, you know, and he's a single dad. And yeah, Willa puts herself forward while she's like off work for the summer to help for a few months, to help look after his son Luke, and yeah, just basically be a live-in nanny. And obviously a chemistry happens between them. Willa is honestly one of my new favorite FMCs. I am obsessed with her, just like carefree, wild spirit. She's so much fun. She's so just honest and truthful and authentic, and I adore her. I adored Luke. Like, and in the past, I've never really been like a single parent trope girly. I never like hated it. It just didn't really appeal to me, and thus I never really read many of them. Like, it just wasn't something that I wanted to pick up. Probably because I feel like a lot of people like books that they can kind of relate to or almost put themselves into. Whereas I'm nowhere near parenthood, and I don't think I will be for a while. So it's just not something I'm normally interested in, but obviously I loved the first book in this series. I knew I wanted to continue it, and I am so glad I did. Yeah, the relationship between Willa and Luke, and even Cade and Luke actually, was just so cute. And then obviously the relationship between Willa and Cade was just to die for. I could not put this book down. I was obsessed with it from start to finish. I just knew from like the first 50 pages that I was going to have such a great time. Elsie Silver's writing is just so easy to get through. Honestly, like, I find this normally in a fantasy series because you get so immersed in them, but I actually forgot sometimes that I was reading when I was reading this book. It was just that good. Like, I was just so in it and just getting through the chapters at such a speed. I also listened to the audiobook a little bit for this one, which was really fun. I quite liked the narrators. I think they did a really good job. So I'd recommend it. Listen to mine on Spotify if you have a Spotify Premium, and you can listen to your audiobooks on there. Yeah, I couldn't recommend this one enough as a fun, like, February Valentine's Day romance if you haven't read it already. You know, this was good as well when it even had a trope that I'm not thrilled with. And I literally didn't care. Like, it was written really well. It was executed really well. And I was just so in love with the characters and their relationship that it didn't bother me. Like, it just didn't. So this was my favourite book of the month, hands down. Then the next book I have had on my TBR, my like digital TBR, for a long time. Then I bought it in Belgium in December when I went there for a little mini holiday. And I've been excited to read it ever since because it's just always intrigued me. It sounded like something I was going to love. And it ended up being Sarah Caroli's book club choice, which I didn't actually know at the time. And that was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is also one of the books I wanted to read this year, my 24 books for 2024. And I've already read one, which is great. And I Loved this book. I can't remember what I rated it though. Let me double check. I rated this a 4.25. I'm wondering whether I might bump it up to a 4.5 though, because I finished this like mid-January. Honestly, probably not far off a month ago now, and I do still think about it all the time. It wasn't a 5-star book, like it didn't give me that 5-star feeling, and there were a couple of elements that I didn't like, but I think I might bump this up to a 4.5 because it's just so unique and so special, I think. It basically follows this girl called Addie, and she's born in the 1700s, and obviously back then life for a woman was quite different, very, very, very oppressive. And basically her parents just wanted her to find a nice guy, get married, settle down, have that like, I don't know, milkmaid life, I don't know, but you know what I mean, like the 1700s wife aesthetic, let's go for. And she doesn't want this. She just wants to be free to do what she wants. She doesn't want to marry some random guy because he's like more prestigious and will give her, you know, a comfortable life. She just wants to follow her own path and do what she wants to do. So she runs away at the beginning of her wedding, and basically, long story short, ends up making a deal with basically the devil, asking just for a life of freedom. As you can tell, devil isn't really to be trusted, and he does give her freedom, but with a catch, which is that she can live forever and be free, but she's invisible. Nobody will ever remember her. So people can see her, like she's not invisible as in you wouldn't even see her walking past you. You would see her, but then the second she's like gone from your vision and you step away from her, that's it, you'll forget about her. So literally nobody remembers her, and she has to go through life with that burden. And she lives for like 300 years. The book follows 2 timelines, so from the 1700s onwards, and you sort of see how she navigates life being invisible, how it's possible to live without a single person knowing who you are. And then also present day, which I think is like 2014. So living in modern New York City, and basically you kind of see how she's managed to navigate, how her life now looks, and how she's managed to learn how to live with the burden of being invisible. This book just made me feel so many emotions. Wow. It was the writing. Let's start with the writing. This is my first V.E. Schwab book, and I was so mesmerized by the way that she was writing this story. She writes so lyrically and beautifully and poetically, like the way that she sets a scene, the way she describes feelings and emotions that the characters are feeling. Oh my gosh, it was just stunning. Just the writing alone gives this book a high rating, because it was like almost like being in like a fairy tale, or it just really transported you into Addie's story. It was incredible. This book is like quite a slow paced book. Like I say, she lives for like 300 years, and a lot of this book follows many, many years of her navigating. And so there's a lot of like going back into the past and looking into her life over the last many decades. It wasn't, for the most part, I actually didn't find it boring. I thought every chapter and like POV added to her story, gave it credibility, gave you crucial just details and moments of her journey. Up until a certain point, I want to say the last like 100 pages, there's a certain thing that happens in the past POVs that happen repetitively, and it's really hard to explain. If you know, I suppose, but after a while I kind of got a little bit fed up of that concept, and it felt a little bit repetitive. Yeah, it's very hard to explain about saying exactly what it is, but that's one of the only things really that I struggled with. That and the ending was, oh my gosh, the plot twist that led us to the ending, I didn't see coming. It tugged on my heartstrings so hard. Oh my gosh, the emotions. I just got so connected to the characters in this book. I cried, severely cried. It was honestly devastating. But the actual ending, like the last couple of pages, I was so confused and divided about how I felt about them, because I was kind of like, was the ending happy? I don't know. Was I kind of hoping for a slightly different ending? Maybe. Like, was I disappointed? Was I sad? Was I heartbroken? Was I happy? Don't know. I still don't know. Just the way that this book made me feel deserves to give it such a high rating. And yeah, I couldn't recommend this enough. It's just a great blend of like fantasy, magical realism, historical fiction as well. Like there's just so many elements to this, and I got through it again really quickly. I tabbed quite a lot of it, like I say, because the writing was just so stunning, and there's definitely just so many quotes in this I'll end up coming back to for sure. And then I moved on to Kindle reading for my next 2 books, partly because one of them I wanted to get to at Christmas and didn't have the time to, so I just thought January's still cozy, like we could read it then. And then the second one was kind of just a time filler to read before House of Flame and Shadow came out, but anyway, we'll get to that in a sec. So the first book I read on my Kindle was A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. The title just sounded so fun. Like when I added this to my Goodreads TBR, I just saw the cover, I saw the title, and I thought, that sounds like a piece of me. There's literally like a little gingerbread man on the cover. It's just so cute. And as I say, I kind of wanted to read this over Christmas because it looked like it wasn't described as a festive read, but I just saw the gingerbread, it gave me cozy vibes. You know, it's obviously got magic in it, so I just thought, Christmas, yay, but I didn't get around to it. So I thought, you know what, January's cozy, we'll read it in January. And it was so fun. I gave it 3 stars. It was just such an easy, fun read, required no brain power. It's about a girl who works in her, either her parents', but I want to say aunt's bakery, one of the two. And she comes downstairs one day and there is a dead body on the kitchen floor. And after a couple of chapters, we basically find out that there is some like murderer guy who appears to be targeting witches and wizards. And the book just basically follows the main character, whose name I can't remember. Mona. Basically goes on a kind of quest mission to find out why this is happening and how they can stop it, obviously. However, Mona is not just any ordinary witch. Her only sort of power is to manipulate dough and baked goods. Like I say, it was just so fun. Like, it was literally giving me Shrek 2 vibes when the baker makes the giant gingerbread man monster thing at the end of the film. That was literally the whole vibe that this book gave. It was so fun. I'm going to keep saying the word fun, apparently. Got no other word to use. But yeah, there's not really a lot to say about this. It wasn't a bad book. It wasn't a fantastic book. It was just a nice little palette cleanser. If you just want something easy to read between books, you want something with a little bit of magic and like a tiny bit of mystery. I think this is definitely classed as like a YA fantasy. The main character, I believe, is 14. Then this is a great one to pick up. And then we stayed reading on the Kindle and we moved on to my first arc of the year, thanks to NetGalley and Random House, and that was The Husbands by Holly Gramazio, and you would have seen me reading this in my latest video. So obviously I talked about it quite a bit on there, but I'll give another really quick synopsis overview. The book follows Lauren in her London apartment, and she goes out with her friend one night, just casual clubbing, bit of fun. She comes home and realises that there is a man in her house, and she doesn't know who this man is. And like there's little details around the flat that have changed. There's pictures of him and her in like photo frames, and like the furniture's slightly different and the decor is slightly different, and she's thinking, what the hell is going on? Turns out this guy's apparently her husband. Obviously being confused because she's not married, she's never seen this guy before. Lauren's trying to figure out how this has happened. And long story short, there are husbands being generated in her attic. She sends one husband up and another one comes down, and it is just a constant loop of recycled husbands. It's the most bizarre thing I'd ever heard of, but I knew as soon as I read the synopsis that I had to read this book and request it, and luckily got given a copy. It was so funny. I actually really struggle to laugh at stuff, and this goes for anything, books, TV shows, films. Like, I'm just not, I don't know. I feel like I'm such a simple human. But actually genuinely laughing at stuff, like I just struggle, I don't know why. But this book genuinely made me laugh and chuckle, and I found it so interesting because it was like nothing I've ever read before. And then obviously I feel like there is a underlying message and motif in this book about, obviously, you know, for Lauren it becomes very easy to just keep switching out husbands like nobody's business if she's not feeling any of them. But ultimately, you know, life just isn't that simple. This book is 350 pages, so initially I did kind of worry if it was going to start getting a little bit tedious and repetitive, because how far can you go with a storyline where this woman is just constantly recycling the husbands? And for the majority of the book, I think Holly did a great job. I think she kept the plot interesting, still kept you on your toes quite a bit, because there was a good while reading this where I had no idea what was coming in the next chapter. Like, it did really keep me on my toes. But there did become a bit where it was slightly boring, and then the ending as well I had issues with. It was so abrupt. Not only was the ending not really what I was hoping for, it also literally got concluded in about 3 pages, and then that was it. And it was a little bit unsatisfying, I can't lie. So that's where this book falls flat for me. But pretty much most of the book up until the ending was great. I had a great time. I read it again really quickly. I just didn't really want to put it down because it was just so different. I believe it's published in May or April. I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something a bit different that you've never read before, that you can have a good laugh at. Yeah, it was a good one. And then my last book of January, which I literally read in 2 days before Crescent City 3. I knew I was going to read it quickly. I didn't want to be in the middle of a book, so I thought, what can I read really quickly that I'm going to enjoy, that I can just get bish bash bosh done before Crescent City? And again, you saw me start this in my previous video if you watched it, and that was The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I loved the Inheritance games when I read it back in November. It was so fast, quickly paced. I read that also within like literally 2 days. Mind-blowing. Just one of those books where you sit down, you read it, and yeah, you look up and you realise just how far you've gotten within one sitting, and it's like, oh my god, like, how did this happen? So I knew I was going to enjoy The Hawthorne Legacy, and I knew I was going to get through it quickly. I gave it 3.75 stars, so slightly less than the first book, just because I just didn't feel as enthralled by the plot of this book than I did the previous one. So it's not a bad thing, it just wasn't. I just didn't like it as much as Inheritance Games. The only way I can describe this book without giving it away, I don't think I can actually, but it just follows on from the things that Avery and the Hawthorne brothers find out at the end of the first book, and obviously, yeah, this just continues from there. I literally can't really say anything because everything really that happens in this book would spoil everything from the first book as well. So take my word for it, the series is great. The ending of this book really intrigued me. Like, Avery is definitely a smart character, and she's not that naive. She knows what's going on. She knows when to be careful, when to speak up, who to trust, who not to trust. But she has like such a character shift at the very end of this book, which makes me so excited to pick up the last book of the trilogy. Also, like, the very subtle romances in these books I am obsessed with. Let me know in the comments which Hawthorne brother you're for, because for me, basic baby, but it just has to be Jameson. The little moments with Jameson they make me feel good. And like, I understand why people might be Grayson girlies, but I don't know, there's more to Jameson for me, and I'm excited to see what happens in the last book. That's all I'm gonna say. I really can't say anything, but just trust me when I tell you, you need to read this series. It's YA mystery, it's so easy to read, it's so interesting, entertaining, never boring, so quick to get through, amazing cast of characters. Yeah, that's that. And that's all the books I read in January this year. So I hope you enjoyed my wrap up. I'm currently reading House of Flame and Shadow. I am like a third of the way in. No, I must be more than that. I'm on page 300 exactly. So I'm getting through it slowly. I got it 2 days late. But yeah, that'll definitely be in my February wrap up. So look forward to that. And I am filming a reading vlog. So again, look out for that, because I'm filming a video of me obviously reading the book and then discussing the book, and at the end I will be doing like a full spoiler review, but it'll all be timestamped anyway. That's another thing, but yeah, so look forward to that. That'll be going up hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I hope you had a great January. Let me know as well what your favourite reads were of the month. Any recommendations will always be very welcome. And I will see you soon. Bye, besties.